to Power Brief on this day being the International Day of Friendship. We are coming to you live on a Friday, not on a Thursday, because we want to do things in a friendly way, in a way that politics will not be diluted to the extent that it has been observed in the recent days. Tonight, we are joined by Honorable Jeremiah Kioni, who is the MP for Ndaragwa and also the Chairman of Constitutional Implementation and Oversight Committee in Parliament. And together, we're going to look into some of the things that are surrounding the roadmap to the 2022 general election. And our question tonight is that should the 2022 elections be postponed? Because looking at what is coming from different quarters, there are a number of issues that Honorable Kioni and also with his team have been suggesting. One of it coming to a point that what is the fate of the above 26 constituencies which can be first off if the BBI implementation is not done on time. My name is Cornelius Omuse and I welcome you in this conversation, which is also live on our Facebook page, KAK TV Kenya, and YouTube is KAK TV Kenya. Honorable Kioni, welcome to Power Brief tonight.
Thank you.
Being an International Day of Friendship according to the United Nations. It's been a while and probably I know you've been moving across the country.
It's been a while and it's amazing that we are here.
Exactly.
During that Day of International Friendships.
Exactly.
And the United Nations have, they have the International Day of Friendship. We also have something called, not from the UN, but we have the Happy Father's Day, we have Mother's Day, quite a number of days that are meant to draw us towards the positive, get us to do what is light, what is good for the soul, what is pleasing to the mind, and certainly what is also pleasing to God.
Sure.
And even when we play our local politics, anything that pulls us towards the same direction must be appreciated. And we should not be seen to be the ones pulling towards the opposite direction. And I can tell you that Uhuru Kenyatta gave us the way forward when he went and held the handshake, or held the hand of the former Prime Minister. Because that is another day we should be celebrating, just like we are celebrating the International Day of Friendship. That's a national day of friendship that should also be celebrated in this country, so that we don't talk about things in abstract.
Sure.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Now, straight away.
But allow me to say that it is. You said if BBI is not implemented, if the Constitution is not implemented. It's not the BBI. I think you slip of your tongue.
For that, that was just a slip of the tongue. There are two things here to begin with tonight. One, we have a letter from Presbyterian Church of East Africa,
yes,
which was addressed to all Presbytery clerks.
Yes.
This is concerning the decision of the Business Committee, a regular meeting which was held on 1st of July this year.
Yes.
And they noted with concern that this is a political season.
Yes.
And as a political season, you realize that most of the times politicians, led by you, you're a politician, sometimes you go to church, or you've been going to church, then you request for that opportunity, probably maybe to greet the church, or you're given some special consideration. And out of it, it has not been going very well with a number of people, including those ones who are the critics of the church, talking of, is the church supposed to work on spiritual matters alone or on politics also? So I want to get it from you, you being an elder in church and also as a politician, looking into this thing. How have you received this information and how has it been received outside there?
One is that I think, let me also say that thank you for inviting me here. And also thank the Secretary General of the Presbyterian Church of East Africa for the letter that was written to all the churches, bringing to the attention of members and the clergy, elders, members, the clergy, and allowing us to get into this issue of political season and the rest. And I want to agree that with the letter, and it is important that members of this church and the church in general pay attention to what is likely to happen this period. It's a time that everybody must be very cautious, must be extremely cautious, we, the politicians, must be very cautious, must be very careful with the choice of words that we allow out of our mouth, out of our system. Even our demeanor at times matters a lot, because when we have elections in this country, it becomes a very emotive issue. And it is the responsibility of everybody to ensure that the emotions are kept as low as is possible. Of course, one of such areas is the church, and I agree that political activities within a church must be handled with a lot of care. And I say with a lot of care, and at times you can actually see that the care is lacking in quite a number of, not just not our churches, but really I'm talking about the church in general. The letter talks about this season, sure. And it is the correct season. I would have talked about throughout the period of, throughout the days, throughout the, in fact, let me say it this way, that at all times the church must be very, very careful. Because when I come into the church as a member of parliament for Daragwa, and I belong to X political persuasion, within the pews, there are those who agree with me and those who don't agree with me. There are those who agree with my political viewpoints and those who don't agree with my political viewpoints. So it is very important for me as a politician to be very careful of how I address the general membership in the church, and also the issues that I canvass or the messages that I seek to send over. But equally, even the clergy must be extremely careful of the messages that they said, because in their congregation there lies the same principle. There are those who support X and who support Y, either the candidate or the ideology, but they are preaching to all of them at the same time. So even what they say is very important. And there are times you may think that in this congregation, the whole of this region is painted Kara, zebra. And for that reason, you do not expect Kara, giraffe, to be in this congregation. But there may just be that one soul that is not a zebra. It is a giraffe in your congregation. And there you are preaching a zebra message and a zebra political message, thinking that all who are there believe in your philosophy. And I can tell you, because I've sat in such congregations, it feels very bad. You feel very disrespected and extremely hurt, because you walked into a church to, to be nourished spiritually. You are looking for the word of God to come to you, and you want to live in a more peaceful mind. A person who has been helped to either through a healing or through a process you are going through. And but there you are, seated there, and the sermon that is there is really just really hurting you. Let me give you an example so that you can see why the message should go. This is a sword, both sides, the politicians, yes, but also the clergy. When I stood with Musalia Mudavadi, I was like the only Kikuyu who was not supporting the Uhuru Ruto pact then. And certainly I come from Mount Kenya. I would attend church services within Mount Kenya. And I can tell you, at that point I felt like, do I really belong to this church? Do I really belong to these people? Why wouldn't they also appreciate that within them there are those who may have different viewpoints, so but are also keen, they didn't criticize. But I'm also keen to hear the voice of God coming through the minister. You get, but when you get so political on the pulpit and you're a minister, and you completely ignore that the 42 tribes that could easily exist within your congregation, then you end up on the same platform with a politician. The politician will stand in front and push his political agenda. And you as a minister, if you also go to the pulpit and push one side of a political divide, you are equally doing the same thing the politicians were doing. But having said that, I think it is also important to ensure that you don't allow political competition to play out in the church. It doesn't augur well. That is one. But also, at the same time, it's also not, and not just in the church. In fact, where I see people really insensitive is during the burials. You have gone to take part in a burial ceremony, to condole the family, to be the grieving family. They have lost their father, their mother, their son, their daughter, their husband, their wife, whatever relationship, their grandmother, their grandfather, a neighbor, and they are really feeling we have lost, and we are here in a sorrowful mood. And there you come, perhaps at times the politicians don't even know the name of the person being buried, whether a male or a female, and you can tell from the speech, this guy doesn't have an iota of, or he has no idea of what we are doing here. And there you go and go ballistic. And you failed to appreciate that we came to be with the family. So it is very important that even when we go to those functions, your words must be words to encourage the family. So I am in total agreement with this letter. It is very, very important. But I'm saying, just like it is a case with the politicians, I can also now talk from this other side. I've been an elder of the PCA church. I can talk churches, some churches, and you know, the joy or the comfort with me, just like with other our ministers, perhaps, and our elders, and some of our members in the churches, is that being a leader, I go to all churches. I go to everywhere there is the people are congregating for one reason or another. One have always to be careful about your faith, even when you go there and the things you should and you should not do. But as a leader, you cannot say, I am a leader of these ones, not those ones. You will have failed totally as a leader. I remember when I was first elected, I told an OCS in Daragwa, I still remember him, that, by the way, do you know that I was elected to be a member? It was actually, I was looking for votes. And I told him, do you know I'm looking for votes to represent everybody, including the Mogeki. That time, Mogeki was a really feared phenomenon in our area. And you are seen with them, you are actually reported, and a very serious action was taken. Maybe you know, I don't know whether you are, how old you are at that time. But I went and told the OCS, and I want you to help me to know where they are, the Mogekis, because I want to go and talk to them. I want to ask for their vote. And I also want to know their issues, because I want to present their issues in Parliament. I think I did and presented the issues of Mogeki in Parliament, and something people do not know. It is out of what I did within Parliament that we were able to pass a law that brought an end to the killing of Kikuyu boys' sons. And I am proud of it. So when you are elected into Parliament, you are a member of Parliament for all congregations, and I go to all of them. I can tell you the way congregations treat visitors, one congregation of them. There are congregations that are very elaborate, and you want to visit them as many times as you can. There are some congregations that are very cold, and you also wonder, what the hell did I come into this congregation? Now I will research this, you take on your point, because it's very, very important, and I am sure this is going to help ministers, it's going to help even elders, it's going to help leadership of churches. When you see a visitor walk into your church, how you receive that visitor is very important. That's the only thing that lasts in the mind of the person who has visited you for one or twice, 3 times. When they sit around a table, we always talk about it. By the way, do you know this church knows how to receive visitors? That is one. So every congregation, every church must know how do they, not just members of Parliament, how do you receive your visitors? I know in our churches we have a song and the rest and those kind of things. It's very important. But finally on this issue, and I know we'll talk more about it, it's also important, just like I see the ministers do to one another. When I walk, when a member of Parliament from Mombasa comes to Daragwa, it is not Musa who is in Daragwa. It is the person representing the people of Mombasa who has come to Daragwa. when you snub him, it is not him you are snubbing. It is the people of Mombasa you have snubbed. And what members of the constituency go back home saying is that huyu mchungaji anatudharau, si anadharau mbunge wetu, anatudharau. These are things that we need to wake up to as leaders of institutions, as leaders of... it's just like when the president was in the UK. If our president was snubbed when he was there, we will not be saying it is our president they are snubbing. It is us. They have such contempt for us Kenyans. So always remember, when you see a person who is holding an office by virtue of having been entrusted by a multitude, that multitude is very careful and keen to see how you are treating the one they have bestowed their responsibility upon. Because the way you treat them, you treat him, they take it to mean the way you look at us.
Thank you, Honorable Kioni. Still on that, the PCA Church has made a great move, but remember, it's just part of the denominations within Kenya. We have so many, countless of them.
I don't think you can...
In history of this country, a few years ago, one of our senior politicians went to fundraise in one of the regions in this country, and a very senior church, actually a clergy, stood up and talked of, Simeona ni politician so and so stands with us during when we need money and ABCD. So this is the person we should stand with. And this thing really pricked a number of those who hold contrary opinion to this politician, and they were saying, if such a bigger church can come in and side with a politician, where are we heading next? Now, let's go to the law, because at the end of the day, everybody will look at the regulations.
Now, but church, do you want to allow that very important statement that you have said to just go
to the, we now go to the law?
You may not be able to attach that to the law. Yes. I think it is a statement that needs to be interrogated by itself. It's a very important thing that you have said. If you say that this is the minister who, this is the member, this is the aspirant, yes, this is the minister, this is the person who is studying with us. So it is not that you are really concerned about the quality of the person. You are concerned about the material being, the material wealth of that person, which he may have shared with you. And that is completely the wrong premises upon which you should tell your congregation to accept a person or otherwise. And that has contributed largely to the problems we have in this country. And that is why I'm saying this letter is very good. It says it all if you are able to read it between the lines. But it actually should cover the entire period, not just the electioneering period. It should cover the entire period. And you should not come to my side because I give you more money than the other one. I think it is completely unbiblical that you only look at the amount of money that I'm able to give you for you to be able to say that I am useful to you on the other. Because every one of us, I believe, was created for a purpose, and my purpose may be very different other than that of what another person is doing. So I really would fault such a minister.
Thank you very much. Now, still on that, church and politics and the relationship and what is coming from the church. Just yesterday, the National Council of Churches in Kenya did a meeting, and they gave out a press release. And in this press release, some of the things that were touched seems to be touching on you as a person, and also the virtue of your office, a very critical office in the National Assembly. This is now the Constitution Implementation and Oversight Committee. One of the things that the church, the NCCK, talked about is what they termed as backdoor constitutional amendments. And their plea, or whatever they brought out here, was that stop backdoor constitutional amendments. As we are having, or as we are waiting the court, that is a Court of Appeal, to give their verdict regarding the BBI report, there is something that has come out from your committee regarding the appointments of members of parliament into the cabinet. That is one. Two, you also came up with a suggestion. If I didn't lose you, I watched, so you came out and said what you really want is to know the fate of these constituencies, not necessarily to postpone, but you're saying that if at all the constituencies has to be saved, then the election has to be...
The purpose of conducting an election is more important than the election hearing itself.
That is what actually got from you. Now, on this issue of backdoor constitutional amendments, before we even get into the concept of issue, do you agree that there is that attempt?
One is...
or is anything exists? Does anything exist to do with the backdoor and...
allow me to take you down memory lane. Memory lane, and a lane that may not be familiar or may not be known to many. When we finished the 2017 general elections, and I was given the responsibility of guiding the Constitution Implementation Oversight Committee, a constitutional committee, but a parliamentary committee, whose mandate is in the Constitution, in this 12th Parliament, my first point of call was the Secretary General of NCCK, then Reverend Canon Karaja. And we met, I still remember we met at a place called Parasina, not very far away from where the offices of NCCK are. And I wanted us to start a conversation with him, for the reason that during the 2010 constitution making process, he was in the no team. I was in the yes campaign. And even when he was in the no campaign, we used to discuss a lot and try and find out which are these areas that are of such concern to you that cannot allow us to support this document now, and we deal with them later. And eventually we decided, let us go a different way. We will live with the outcome. And there we were. We got the yes at 67%. But there was the other team that abstained, and a team that said they would rather perhaps live with the old constitution. Having that background, I then reached out to the Secretary General of NCCK as my first point of call, and told him that the reason why I wanted to be the chairman of this committee is because I believe there is unfinished business. And if we were to look at it together, I think we can be able to come up with something that can be useful to this as a starting point. At that time, we still had the ODM and the Jubilee at very different corners. Really, the war was still on in the streets of Nairobi. And I was looking around us, what is this that we can do to try and cure even this very corrosive atmosphere that we were having. Shortly thereafter, there was the handshake. We left it with Karaja that a good idea. I think I must have found him, least something I saw like this is something he didn't quite think would have ever come his way, because in any case, we had done the Constitution 2010. We are now in 2017. For 5 years, nobody had talked to him. That 5 years. I wasn't in Bunge, so nobody reached out to the institution to try and find out what can we do to either narrow the gap and find out why is it that you are saying no and the rest. And we started some of these debates. We talked about the government being away from parliament, or the executive being too far from the parliament, or a host of issues. I honestly cannot quite be able to say all of them. But quite a number of the issues, perhaps even covered by the BI, we will have highlighted some of them. It was over lunchtime, and I think we were either 2, 3, or 4 people like that. By the way, I also had a discussion, I believe, with the chairperson of NCCK, maybe even before that time, but I think I wasn't in Bunge then. It was during the 11th Parliament. Why am I saying this? Is to say that what I thought, now, when the current leadership at NCCK views Parliament or a member of the National Assembly or a member of the Senate, Parliament, who was elected by the people to go and look at the appropriateness of laws, either to amend them or to pass other new ones. When you look at that person as performing a backdoor activity, then my mind is left wondering. Where are we missing it? One, there are three arms of government: executive, judiciary, and the legislature. Each one of them with a very clear mandate as to what they should be doing under the Constitution. The mandate of doing laws, passing bills, amending the Constitution, enacting new legislation, deleting those which we think are already spent, has been left with the legislature. So how is it that a body whose mandate is clearly spelled out in the Constitution becomes a backdoor institution?
Thank you. Before we go for a quick break, if you allow me, Honorable Kioni.
And I wanted to say the third thing.
Okay.
So that you come there. The third thing is this. We have a bill that is before Parliament, a bill that I signed on the 22nd of October 2020. A bill that was published in the Kenya Gazette on the 20th of November 2020. A bill which was led for the first time in Parliament on the 22nd of December 2020. A bill which takes a minimum of 6 months, 6, 7, 8 months to prepare and get it to that level of my signature as a chairman of the committee. It takes a minimum of 6, 7 months for you to ever get a legislative agenda to that point. So a process that had taken more than 12 months in the making, honestly, how do you term it a backdoor?
Thank you very much, Honorable Kioni. We go for a quick commercial break. As we come back, we'll be trying to find a level ground between the National Council of Churches of Kenya and the arm of government that is mandated to make laws and amend laws, that is the legislative arm. And one of the crucial committee chairperson is here tonight with us to help us harmonize some of these pull and back scenarios that have been witnessed in the recent days, even as the country prepares for the general election that is slated for August the year 2022. Keep it here on CAP TV.
PCA Shalom Model Academy is a faith-based day school which is anchored on Christian principles. Currently, our classes are running from playgroup PP1 up to class 6. From July this year, we shall have class 7, and next year, May, we shall have our first candidate class. We nurture a holistic child that is physically, socially, emotionally, and spiritually. Our school has the best facilities to be able to implement the competency-based curriculum and the 844 system of education.
We offer education that provides opportunities for the learner to develop to the full potential. We promote acquisition of values geared toward developing a self-disciplined and ethical citizens. We provide inclusive and equitable access to quality and differentiated education, including learners with special and educational needs and disabilities.
We train kids in games such as volleyball, football, netball, geomax, and many more. We also train kids in clubs such as French Club, Scouts Club, Music Club, and Drama Club.
Our pupils within Kabete, Kikuyu, and its environs are facilitated with school transport that is well coordinated by our very able team. Our interviews are ongoing for all classes at an affordable fee. We are giving a good offer on fee payment for those ones joining class 7 this July.
We are very proud to be affiliated to PCEA Shalom Model Academy, Zambezi.
Welcome back and many thanks for tuning in to CAC TV on Power Brief tonight as we look into what is surrounding the 2022 general election, and we're joined by Honorable Jeremiah Kioni, who is the MP for Ndaragwa and also the chairman of Constitutional Implementation and Oversight Committee in the National Assembly. Before we went for a commercial break, Honorable Kioni, there's something that we were laying a ground for, especially what has come from the National Council of Churches of Kenya.
Yes.
The church cannot be ignored. It's impossible because you realize that Kenya as a country, close to 80% of the people are Christians, so they subscribe to what comes from the church, and therefore whatever comes from the church really has a very greater impact to the citizens and what happens in the country. You've mentioned 3 grounds how you met the leadership of the NCCK and to the far that you reached. There's one thing before we go into some of the points that the NCCK raised. They talked of one thing which resonates with what came from the High Court, so we won't discuss it due to sub judice as required by the law, but they talked of any initiative to amend the constitution has to begin from the people. I think it was the last word which came here about respecting Kenyans and respecting the citizen, that it has to come from the people. This thing,
I like you are saying, it's a very difficult topic. I have a lot of respect for the clergy, and I find it at times very difficult to go on air to criticize them.
It's not about criticizing. Why
allow me to just say that that I actually find it difficult to even hold a contrary view in public, because I believe that that's my upbringing, respect for men and women in color, who have the color. And so I will struggle to say a couple of things. And why is because there are people of influence, there are people who have been given who have a divine responsibility, and how I wish that mutual respect would exist between them and the leadership in the country. This country will be the better. As opposed to when we all take to the political platforms, public platforms, to criticize one another. And I say this because if, for example, like we had reached out to NCCK 2018, there was that reciprocal, approach to issues. They would have reached out to find out what is happening, and we would have told them, by the way, if you go to the parliamentary website, there is something called the bill tracker. You will be able to track when was this bill, the process of making this law commenced. Where are we? And it will also be important to know that there is no injunction against Parliament carrying on with this work. The third thing is this, that yes, the amending of the Constitution should begin with the people when it is a popular initiative. But when it is a parliamentary initiative, it is started with Parliament and then Parliament goes to the people through public participation. So I would have been, and I'm still paying attention to this, for somebody who would follow the process that we have followed. And if it's the case, we will restart the process and go back, because the other thing that needs to be said is that the level of suspicion that we are allowing to play out by even the clergy, who can be able to reach out and find out about an issue before you go public, does not help the environment in this country. You pollute the environment because you send the message that there are people out there who are out to do very bad things to you as a country. When you do that, you're not helping the country to move on in a peaceful environment. You are setting up.
Kioni, thank you.
1 minute. No, I have to finish this, Omus. I don't want to say that you want to cut me. I want to say this, that we have to stop being suspicious of one another and look for the good in every one of us. When we propose a constitution amendment, I think the NCCK should be reaching out and saying, what is it that you have in mind? Can we discuss this? Can we improve on it? I don't think this is good. And in any case we are having that public participation, we will invite them to come and tell us what they think is wrong with the law, or what they think we should do, how they think we should have done it. That opportunity will also be granted to them. But I am taking this opportunity to urge leaders, both in the political field and indeed the clergy, our spiritual leaders, to tone down on suspicion levels, reach out to each other. Remember, all of us have a responsibility. There is the moral responsibility, the spiritual responsibility that rests with the church. And I personally value it, and I always listen. We will always try and agree. I like it more when it is behind closed doors, as opposed to when you are throwing words to one another, because in so doing, institutions suffer. So I hear the NCCK. I instructed our secretariat to ensure that they invite them to come over. I'm told there are also people who have gone to court. Again, we will listen to what the court says. But that is not a good environment that is existing between institutions in the country at the moment.
Thank you.
And as clergy, they should be reaching out to try and pacify, not add more fuel.
We will come into that during the home stretch. Something is coming up on our show tonight, and especially the level of suspicion that you've just talked about. Remember, we have the BBI conversation that has been here with us for a long time, and as we said earlier, the Court of Appeal will make a decision somewhere in August, that is next month. What came out from this press that I'm just reading here is that the NCCK knows, and even yourself and every other person knows, that there is a process going on in court. The BBI contained a proposal about the issues of the constituencies, these constituencies, the Budalangi, including yours, Daragwa, and other constituencies, that if at all this document was to be passed, it could address that thing automatically. Two, there was suggestion to have members of parliament, suppose Honorable Kioni, okay, you're already an MP, and the executive finds it well to appoint you to be the Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs. They say, let's give him to do so. That proposal was in the BBI report. But what might have irked the NCCK is knowing that we have this process ongoing, and at the same time, we have seen the proposal, your concern regarding the fate of these constituencies, and two, the proposed bill that you've come up with in the National Assembly regarding the appointments of the ministers for members of parliament. Don't you think this one might have brought the problem? And then two, did you maybe tell them you are making such a move?
Tell who?
The NCCK.
No, I am not under any obligation to tell NCCK that we are making that move. The responsibility that we have is to let every Kenyan know that is being done, and that is why it is put in the Kenya Gazette. And the Kenya Gazette had already been done on the 20th of November 2010. When did we go to court?
that courts, it was just this year, 2021.
When was the BBI document put on the table? You may not have the dates. If you look at the dates when the BBI document was finally presented to the table, and you look at when we started processing this issue in the committee, you would then realize that we are not, these are issues as readers we had identified way before any other approach was given, and we agreed that we needed to handle them. In fact, there is a private member's motion that had also a similar proposal to amend the constitution, which again had been done on a clear position. How can we improve the governance structure of this country? We are sitting as members of parliament, elected to represent our people in parliament and to present their cases, their issues to the executive, because the institution of parliament does not have solutions. Solutions are with the executive. And as sitting members of parliament, we can see a clear disconnect where we cannot be able to reach the executive, as a result of which the people who are supposed to be benefiting from all these institutions are suffering. Let me give you a very simple example. We have, for example, the old people. They are always crying for the cash transfer. The money is not reaching us. We are not having problems with the banks. My name was lost. I have been left out. I am now 80 years. I have not seen this. To get those issues into the executive, into an office where action will be taken, it takes us more than 6, 7, 8 months, because the minister is not there. The PS is also very busy. There is retro regard to the issues that are being brought by the members of parliament, because there's a clear disconnect between the people and the executive and the institution of parliament. So this is actually an issue that is agreed across the board. Of course, there will be people who will share different views. And I say, for us to improve the service delivery, the effectiveness, the efficiency, the accountability of the executive, it needs to come to parliament. Now, I want you to argue with that. Do not argue with who brought this issue to the table.
Thank you very much.
Argue with that, and also argue with the way it was brought. We can agree. But don't become suspicious just because it came from Omuse, and Omuse is darker than I. That is really, we should have grown out of that level for now. And I want now the NCCK to actually help us come up with even a better proposal. And not just NCCK, any other Kenyan, because any Kenyan can propose a constitution amendment, and the processes are there. If you have a better proposal, put it on the table. If you think we need to improve on this one, bring your ideas on the table. If we think there are things we need to do away with on this one, again, opportunity is going to be there for 3 weeks in the month of August for all those ideas to come.
Thank you so much, Honorable Kion.
Reduce the level of suspicion.
We will get into that because there are certain recommendations or opinions or suggestions that the NCCK put across.
Yes.
Last week, moving across the streets, especially one of the dailies, I think it is just behind us here, it had this topic, and your photo was prominently featuring there, and I know even my guests are still asking me here whether they got you right or not. Is it possible to postpone the election? 1, 2, is it your opinion that this election should be pushed forward, looking into the constitutional hitches that probably is being experienced here and there? And 2, the suggestion that came from the African Union that upon submission of a proposal, a country may be granted that permission to postpone an election, especially with the COVID-19 that we are having at the moment.
The only reason why that topic is difficult to discuss, again, is because of the suspicion levels. And the lack of goodwill between institutions and individuals manning different offices. But let me say this, it is possible to postpone elections because even in our constitution, when and for how long elections can be put off is provided for in the constitution in terms of war and when there is an emergency, meaning that it is not a closed thing.
So it's not only war, also we have
emergency.
And this emergency was not specified by the law.
Yes, I'm trying to answer your earlier question. You said, is it possible to postpone election? And I'm saying yes, because even our constitution provides for postponement of elections and clearly spells out when, in times of war or when we have an emergency. So when you ask that question, I say yes. But is it something that is on the table now? I can tell you, no, it is not there. But there are issues that we need to mention, and I want to say this. Why we go to vote and why we even fought for this constitution is because we wanted to elect our own into the National Assembly, into the Senate now, into the County Assembly, to go and speak on our behalf, to be there when the resources are being shared, to ensure that issues affecting us are presented before the decision makers, that our presence in this country is also felt. That is why we fought for multi-party democracy, so that we have a choice. We also fought for, remember a little bit earlier on, even women in this in parts of this world were not able to vote. Some countries are still not voting. So people fight to vote, to have a voice, to have a say, to be at the table. So we have now a constitution of 2010 that says we have 290 constituencies, and with these 290 constituencies, for you to qualify to have a constituency, you must have X number of people residing within your constituency. During 2010, the X number of people who were supposed to be in your constituency was supposed to be 134,000. If your population was 134,000 and below, varied by 30% up or above, if it didn't meet, if it didn't fall within that bracket, then your constituency was to be scrapped. That issue was before us when we were doing the new constitution, 2010, and guided by the wisdom of the former president, Mwai Kibaki, and the leadership that was there. And all those of us who are at Naivasha, we then said, the worst thing that you can do is to emerge from a negotiation and deliver news to constituency of Budalangi and say, by the way, we also decided that your constituency will be scrapped. The people of Budalangi will tell you, jump to hell. How do you take away that we are already used to? And this is the case for 27 constituencies in this country. So the decision that was arrived then was create a transition provision that says these constituencies will not be touched, at least during the first review of boundaries, which happened 2010. So none of the constituencies was touched. As a result of which, Budalangi, Laisamis, North Hall, Daragwa, Saku were all left to serve 2017, 2013, and 2017. They will be there 2023, but it is important for the residents of these constituencies to know they are waving bye-bye to their ever having an opportunity to elect another member of parliament to represent that unit the way they know it. It is the responsibility of a responsible leader to bring this to the attention of the people who voted for him. It is also the responsibility of that leader to come up with solutions. How do you are there because you are our leader? What do we do? That is a question everybody will ask me when I go to Daragwa. Mheshimiwa, tuambie tutafanya nini? And it is my responsibility to bring this issue to the national platform. It is a national debate. We are looking at Omuse. We are looking at 27 constituencies spread in 16 counties in this republic. 30% of the counties are affected by this problem. 10% of the constituencies are affected by this problem. As Kenyans, how can we remain blind, or how can we then say that we are not seeing that is affecting a big chunk of our country? And we who are affected, how irresponsible will we have been if we do not say, hold, there is an issue we need to discuss as a nation. Fast forward. Census were done 2019, 2 years ago now. And the new population was given at 47.6. Remember, we still have 290 constituencies. Simple mathematics means the average moves from 134 to a new average because the population has grown. So the average has grown also. So we have now moved from 133.34 of 2010 to 164 people in a constituency for you to elect a member of parliament. Remember, the 27 constituencies of 2010 had not qualified at the 134. Where are they at the 164? They completely disappear into the oblivion. That is a fact that must be debated as we go towards 2022 elections.
Thank you so much.
Let me tell you something else, because you need to hear. This is perhaps more than you are bargaining for. When we sat yesterday in Mombasa as a committee, and this issue was tabled, we then asked one of our clerks to tell us, now that the new quota, we are calling it the population quota, or the average per constituency, has grown from 134 to 164,000, is there a likelihood that there are more constituencies that will be scrapped? We have a love guideline here, just a love thing, and every member of parliament should then look at the statistics, look at his population, and come up with an answer for his constituency. Am I threatened? If you are way below 164 by more than 30%, you also fall in the same category with the other 27. In our estimation, we are now not less than 40 constituencies that could actually disappear after the 2022 elections. Omuze, as a country, what is the message you are sending to Kenyans? If Kenyans know that we are voting for the last time, what would they tell you? Would they say, let us vote and disappear? Or would they say, hold, let us first of all get a solution to this before we vote? I believe the latter is the answer.
Thank you very much. Now, as we come to the end of the show, there are things here that we should still let the world know what came from the NCCK, because this is actually very crucial information that everybody should be having. And also, it's a recommendation that comes to you. I know you're going back for more sittings, for more consultations. As you come to a level ground, where do you now come to agree? One, the NCCK recommended that the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission facilitates public discussion of the findings and recommendations arising from the post-election evaluation of the 2017 general elections. The shortcomings of the previous election should not be repeated. That's what they say too. That a nationwide campaign for registration of voters be initiated to ensure the youth who have attained majority age are added to the roll. 3, that speedy and visible action to be taken by the IEBC, the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, and security agencies against any person who mobilizes for violence. 4, the faith institutions and other non-state bodies to be facilitated to undertake civic and voter education to prepare the people to actively and responsibly participate in the elections. And then lastly, that the process of appointing commissioners for the Kenya National Commission for Human Rights be completed urgently. I don't want you to react into this. But what is coming from NCCK, what is coming from other players, those ones who are maybe anti-BBI, yourself who is working to see that the constitution is harmonized with all these voices that are coming, that is totally your responsibility. Is it time again, Honorable Kioni, that you invite all and sundry on the table and say that we are having an election? Actually, we are remaining with 10 days, then we shall be talking of one solid year before we go to the polls. Do you call for another sittings that you had when you're having the BBI, or we proceed as per what the Constitution says?
We will have to certainly look for a solution. in line with what NCCK has suggested, and we must sit and agree aloud those issues. But I want to say this for the record: it is very irresponsible of all these institutions to have sat for the last 4 years, and during the 5th year, when we are now about to raise the political temperature, you call for such meetings. That is why my first point of call, 2018, was with the Secretary General of NCCK. All those issues should have been addressed by now. You don't sit to address issues when emotions are so high, when the stakes are very high, people have picked their presidential candidate. When you put a solution on the table, you are seen to be blocking candidate X, favoring candidate Y. Why can't we learn from the past? How irresponsible can we be to always wait for the 5th year to bring those issues on the table and then run with them during the elections without having gotten a proper solution? They become the areas that we compete for political power as opposed to the ideology or what we want to do for Kenyans. And then they also take a hold of our ear after 2022 elections because we still are angry with what we have done to ourselves. This is the thing, and I want to surprise you. And I honestly would love to meet the NCCK. We will invite them.
And don't forget other players, as we invite them, the other players will also.
And I tell you, we invite all of them.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, 3 issues they have placed there, if not more, are all contained in the BBI. Not to say that BBI, and I'm not here to pitch for BBI, but 3 issues they have placed there are contained in the BBI. The issues of 2017 difficulties that we had, the issues of national cohesion that we have, the issues of IEBC that they have talked, they are all in the BBI. So, could it be that we lost the opportunity when it was there in good time, and now we have to deal with it as a matter of crisis? Can we afford to continue this even after the 2022, and we again wait until 2026? Now that we are already past the time at the safe period, can we run from this and decide that come 2022 December, we should have sat down to deal with the difficulties of that election? Not much later in 2026. That is when we will be managing this country well. And can we stop being suspicious of one another and look aloud at the good that comes from every person? We have this country, we have only this country, and this is the only country that we must work to improve. Any other country you go to, you will always remain either a foreigner or as a citizen that you will acquire much later. You will never feel the same way you feel when you're in this country. They have a responsibility, NCCK. We members of parliament have a responsibility. The executive has a responsibility. Come to a table. And that table, whenever it is laid, go there. Courage is with those who go to that table. When the BBI process was initiated, I was one of the major opponents to that process. But as it continued on, and the crucial role it was supposed to play for some in the issue of on the issues that were being presented to them by Kenyans, outweighed my bias towards the organization or the setting. And I said it does not matter. And I told the Haji, it does not matter anymore. We have no time. I'll come before your committee as the chairman of CIOC. I'll come before your committee as a member of parliament for Daragwa. I'll come before your committee as a Kenyan. I presented my document to them at Olkarau. And to date, and you can ask Senator Mudama, Mrs. Mudama. You can ask her. She keeps saying, who is this who presented this document to us at Naivasha, at Olkarau? These are the issues we need to deal with as a country. Because they are not new. We know them. And when we invite them, when we have this kind of a bill, NCCK, any other institution, the evangelicals, Pentecostals, and even the Muslims, the SUPKEM and others, seize the opportunity, bring the ideas, let us grow this country together. We have only one country.
Thank you very much. Yes. That is Honorable Jeremiah Kioni, MP for Ndaragu, the Chairman of Constitutional Implementation and Oversight Committee. And tonight we took this responsibility to have you listen to what is happening, because it is 12 months to the general election, but still there are quarters, many quarters, who have different opinions regarding on the conduct of this election that is going to be historic. Honorable Kioni has helped us understand what has been happening at the National Assembly in response to what has come from the National Council of Churches of Kenya. Remember always our national mantra, that is peace, love and unity. That is what dominates Power Brief Show on CAT TV, as we look into ways on how we can harmonize and listen to each and every voice towards building this country. I appreciate your overwhelming responses on our social media platforms, your feedback and your queries. For me, Cornelius Omusa, and all those who made this production a success, I wish you a very good night and see you next week, God willing. Have a very good night.